So a strong start to the month for Bitcoin. However, altcoins are lagging behind. But will the events of this week spark a Santa rally? In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some historic data for both Bitcoin and altcoins to see whether this month can provide the start of that long-awaited altcoin season. So let's get into it. So just before we get into the charts, if you're not familiar with what the term Santa rally means, it's pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. It's a phrase used in the stock market to describe a positive rally during the Christmas period. So as you can see, quick little Google here, a Santa rally is a stock market phenomenon where equities across developed markets see a short-term positive effect around Christmas. But the thing I really want to draw your attention to is this. So December historically ranks as the S&P 500's second best month of the year during election years. So as we've talked about before on this channel, if we go to the Bitcoin's returns history, so those election years, of course, are this year, 2024, 2020, and 2016. If we take a look at the Bitcoin historical returns for December of those years, so in 2016, we had a 30% return, and in 2020, we had an almost 47% return. And so far, we're only up 7.5% for this December. So there could be plenty more green to come. Now, of course, the election years also tie in with the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, which again, we've gone over on this channel before, but essentially just to remind you, we are now in the third year of the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. And as I say, that lines up very nicely with the previous election years. So in 2016, that was the start, or October, November of 2016 was the start of the third year of the 4-year cycle. And we went up 2,586% from that point. And then in November 2020, or October, November 2020, again, that was the start of the third year of the 4-year cycle for that cycle. And we went up 400% from that point. So as I say, everything is lining up quite nicely for a bullish continuation into 2025. As you can see, we made that video back at just before the election in the end of October, beginning of November, talking about the fact that we are now entering into the third year of this Bitcoin 4-year cycle. And as you can see, we are currently up from that stage about 55%. So as I say, everything running quite nicely. Now, in terms of the big event this week, that is, of course, the final Fed meeting of 2024, or the FOMC, in which there is, according to this article, a 97% chance that we will see a cut of interest rates by 25 basis points. So that's going to be happening on Wednesday. The decision happens at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and then Jerome Powell will be making a speech at 2:30. So expect some volatility in and around that time on that day. Now, of course, going back to what's been happening in terms of the charts, we take a look at Bitcoin, go back to our regular chart. Bitcoin has been absolutely flying over the past few weeks, grinding higher, as you can see, whereas altcoins have been lagging behind. As you can see today, Bitcoin up 2.5%, whereas altcoins are in the red. Now, if we take a look back at when the last Federal Reserve meeting was, that was back on the 6th and 7th of November. And if we then take a look at altcoins, you can see that that was the start of the most recent altcoin rally. So if we go 4th of November there on Phantom, that's when we started this most recent rally. Injective, again, 4th of November, big up candle and continuation. Nia, again, 4th of November, bottomed out, had that rally. And Solana as well, of course, huge impulse back up to all-time highs, and now we are correcting. So we're obviously seeing a bit of a correction in the altcoins. However, I think this is very bullish and going to set us up for a big rally and potentially an alt season. If we take a look at the Bitcoin dominance and see what's traditionally happened in and around this time of the year and this time of the cycle. So if we zoom out a little bit, now we've obviously talked about this before, about how the all-time high break of BTC is usually the indicator or catalyst for the alt season. But if we take a look at what's happened in those election years, so November, December of 2016, whilst that wasn't the big drop in Bitcoin dominance like it was at the all-time high break of 2017, you can see that that is when Bitcoin dominance did start to slowly drop before the big drop, as I say, in March, April time. So as you can see, this candle here, December 2016, that is when the Bitcoin dominance started to fall. And again, in 2020, slightly different. We actually had a big impulse in Bitcoin dominance, topped out in January, and then we pulled back and obviously started that alt season. Now, this cycle is looking very interesting because it seems to be a bit of a combination of both. You can see we've had that impulse in October this time, potentially topped out last month. However, we started the decline and we're pulling back up and potentially holding this 57% area on Bitcoin dominance as support. Now, of course, you should already know Bitcoin dominance. If Bitcoin dominance is going up, that means Bitcoin is outperforming altcoins. If Bitcoin dominance is going down, that means altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin. So as you can see, at the beginning of this month, altcoins were doing okay, and then the last week or so, they've obviously pulled back whilst Bitcoin has been rallying. So it'll be very interesting to see what is going to happen over the next 2 weeks and the last 2 weeks of the month. Are we going to see this level hold as support on the Bitcoin dominance and have one more charge? If Bitcoin rallies a solo rally up to maybe 115, 120, or if we go down to the weekly time frame, is this just a bit of a bear market rally in the Bitcoin dominance? If we just move this support and resistance line for a second, you can see that we've broken the weekly moving average 21 for the first time, or well, almost the only time since Bitcoin dominance bottomed or reclaimed the moving average 21 back in January 2023. You can see that there is only one time that we've had a weekly candle close since that time, which was in January 2024. Technically two candle closes, and then instantly reclaimed, deviated, and continued the trend. This is the first time a couple of weeks ago on the 25th of November, we actually broke below that trend line and potentially, or moving average, and potentially starting a downtrend. You can see we're having a potential bearish retest here. However, as I say, we could actually reclaim the RSI 50 and hold this monthly level of support and continue higher. So it's a bit up in the air at the moment. It's a little bit 50-50. If we take a look at the ETH BTC chart as well and zoom in, you can see that we are actually holding this 0.04 level as resistance, same as we did back all the way through 2018 and 2021 before we finally got that breakthrough in April 2021. So if we take a look at the weekly time frame as well, you can see that that monthly level has confluence with the weekly moving average 21. Again, you can see this being a long trend, not quite as clean as the Bitcoin dominance chart. We've had a couple of pops above the weekly moving average 21 and then rejected or deviated back below. However, ever since what's this candle here, ever since the 1st of July 2024, so pretty much the last 6 months, 5-6 months, we have been below this weekly moving average 21. So it would be significant if we could get a weekly candle close back above the weekly moving average 21, back above the RSI 50, and obviously reclaim that monthly level as support, whilst also Bitcoin dominance rejecting its own weekly moving average 21 and losing the 57% marker as support. So let's take a look at some altcoins that I think have got some bullish setup. So starting with Phantom FTM, if we go down to the weekly time frame, very strong performance so far over the past few weeks, and continuing to do so despite that wick that we had last week. So you can see we've broken out of this $1.23 resistance. We did that 2 weeks ago at the beginning of December, put in that wick last week, and we've closed above that $1.23 area of resistance. For me, the next big level of resistance is this clear level at $1.64, which is still about 18% away, so not looking too bad at all. If we take a look at the daily time frame, again, you could argue that we are sat on support here. Previous resistance up here at about 138, so it doesn't look too bad for an trade entry at all. The only problem we do have is, of course, we do have this bearish divergence forming on the daily time frame, but we are still above the RSI 50 with a green trend bar. In terms of the 4-hour time frame, this is what I'm looking for as a potential entry. I'm looking for price to come down, retest this 4-hour level of support at $1.31, which is also a 4-hour fair value gap, as you can see on there. So I think that would be a really nice place for an entry should we get it, and it should line up with the daily time frame as well. This divergence would have played out, would still be above the RSI 50, still obviously have that green trend bar, held this area of support as well, and I think that would be a nice leg up to $1.64. So something to keep an eye out for. Injective, Again, weekly time frame, we've broken out of this $28.27. You could call it basically a range high at $28, range low at $15. We broke out a few weeks ago. We've held it as support, including last week where we had that deep wick and retest of the weekly moving average 21, and we're still currently holding that previous range high as support on the weekly time frame. So I think that is a very nice area for an entry. You might want to wait for an extra bit of confirmation in terms of a daily candle close back above this moving average 21, which is what I'm waiting for. You can see we've held this daily level of support at $26.89. We've got that daily fair value gap below it as well, which is held quite nicely. So as you can see, we're a little bit indecisive at the moment. We're sandwiched between support at $28.27 and resistance of the moving average 21, and we're also pretty much flatlined on the RSI 50. So what I'm waiting for is a daily candle close above the moving average 21, which should be a daily close or a reclaim of this RSI 50, and I think that will be a nice play up to the highs and beyond. In terms of risk reward, if we just grab our long position, if you get in as close to that our EMA 21 as possible, and that is a short, not a long. There we go, there's a long position. So you'll be looking at having a stop loss just below today's wick should the lows be in, which would be about 6% ish, in and around there. But the risk reward ratio is still 3-1, which I think is pretty good. And of course, you'll be targeting higher than those previous highs. You'll probably be targeting these highs up here at about $42, which would be a very nice risk reward indeed. Near protocol, I talked about this before. We've got this nice level of support here at $6.46. I thought previously we were going to go down to this $5.50 level where the EMA 21 is and weekly fair value gap. Didn't get that low. We've held this intermediate weekly level here at $6.46. So I think this is quite a nice entry for a long. Your invalidation, of course, being a weekly candle close below that level. In terms of the daily, again though, I personally would be waiting for a daily candle close above this daily level of $7 and this moving average 21. You can see we've pretty much flatlined over the past few days, and we're holding this daily level of $7 as resistance, and we're pretty much sat on the RSI 50. So daily candle close above the EMA 21 and daily level of $7 will of course turn the RSI into a more bullish trajectory, and I think that would be a nice long. Once again, aiming for the weekly level of $8.30 and then beyond. So 20% in terms of the upside. In terms of your stop loss, depending on when we get that daily candle close above $7, or if we get it, of course, then I'd probably be looking at putting stop loss just below whatever wick gets formed there. At the moment, obviously the wicks are a little bit too far away. So as I say, I'd be hoping for a daily candle close above here and then put the stop loss below whatever wick is formed there. And then finally Solana, I'm already actually in a long on this, as I talked about in our videos last week. Got into a long down here at about 206, 207, and we're currently trending down on the daily time frame. As you can see, unfortunately can't get above that daily moving average 21. So as I say, in terms of, if we go to the higher time frames first, on the weekly, talked about that 204 level. We've held that quite nicely, sprung up. We've got this weekly fair value gap acting as support now as well. So as I say, this could be quite a nice level to enter a trade on. Again, if you want to wait for more confirmation on the daily time frame, wait for that reclaim of the daily moving average 21 and that reclaim of the daily RSI 50. As I say, at the moment I'm in a trade. I've already taken TP1. My stop loss is at break even, so it is risk free, even though the trade doesn't look that great at the moment. But I might as well sit in the trade, wait to see if it does stop me out at break even, and then potentially look at re-entering on that 204 level. There is a chance that if this consolidation is going to go on for a little while longer, that this 204 level acts as 115 at the 115 level did before. You can see how many times we tested that 115 level before finally making that break of 204, which was also tested as resistance many times before as well. So we may well see a little bit more sideways chop from altcoins and consolidation before we finally see that upside. But at least for Bitcoin, it looks like we should be in for a bullish couple of weeks if history repeats. So once again, let me know in the comments below what you think is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. What do you think Bitcoin's going to hit by the end of the year? And do you think altcoins are going to rally with it, or are they going to suffer a little while longer? Let us know, and I'll see you in the next video.